Is it worth opening your own photography studio in 2025? Well, the answer isn't as straightforward as a yes or a no. There are a lot more variables that go into it. And in this video, I'm hoping I can answer some of those questions for you. But first of all, who am I? My name is Compton Harry, a fashion, lifestyle and portrait photographer based in Manchester, England. And over the last 5 years, I've owned 2 photography studios. And in this video, I'm going to give you some of my experiences in terms of opening and running a photography studio. And some of the things that I wish I'd know when I first started. So in today's video, we're going to focus on me opening my first studio back in 2019. And some of the things I did, some of the things I wish I did differently, and some of the costs and overheads that goes into opening and running a successful studio. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. So I've got my phone with me and I've got some rough figures in here based off of my experience with my first studio. And one of the things that I personally didn't know about back then in 2019, and something that I 100% recommend doing now, is having a business plan. You need an idea of where you want to go with the business, what you want to achieve with the business, what the success with the business looks like. This will give you some sort of guidance in terms of direction you need to go into. You can do this by researching business plans online. You can ask your accountant, which is something we'll go into later on in terms of what you'll need. You can ask your accountant. There are various ways that you can get help with it, which leads me nicely into the next part. Why would you want to open a photography studio as a photographer? There are a lot of benefits to owning your own studio, including things such as having a space that you can create whenever you want, at any time you want, which can be very vital and useful in the beginning. And the next thing is to work out where it's like, are you actually ready? And here's the thing, the truth, you may or may not be. There's no actual formula to tell you when you're going to be ready to actually take that leap. And let's jump into some of the other things. I've got a few notes here on my phone, which I'll put up on the screen so you guys can see some of the figures that I'm talking about, right? So the next thing you want to do is, once you've got your business plan, you then need to work out what you've got in terms of like savings going into this. Because once you've got your business plan and then you know a rough idea of the figures you'll need to get going, then you'll need to have some sort of savings. I personally recommend getting either at least double what you currently make on a yearly basis, not monthly, yearly. So say you make about £25,000 on your current job that you do, and photography is your side hustle, then you want to have at least 25 to 50,000 pounds saved up. And there's good reasons for this. You hear me out, because even going in it with even 25 doesn't go like that. So having that extra cushion gives you that breathing room to actually keep experimenting, keep trying new things, because you're gonna have to when it comes to owning a studio. So that will be my next step in terms of getting the savings right, making sure that you've got enough money in your bank just in case for a rainy day, because trust me, there are going to be a fair few rainy days in between. So the figures I'm going to share here now are going to be based on where I live. So this might change for you depending on where you live and your location, etc. So bear that in mind. So once you figure out the first steps, like getting your business plan together, making sure that you've got a savings, working out the reasons why you think now is the right time to actually go into owning a studio. The next gradual step is to start looking at location. This is so important because it will have a significant impact on your business. It's important that you pick a location that is suitable for what you are looking to do. You then need to do your research about that location. What is that area like? Is there any other photography studio within the area? So you need to work out whether there's competition within that area, because that may have a significant impact on your business. Also, just a quick reminder, this type of studio that I'm talking about here are for personal use. So I'm talking as you are the photographer, you're the only one that's going to be shooting there with your clients, people who have booked through your website or through word of mouth, or people who've just booked you as a photographer in general. So this isn't based on renting the studio out to other photographers. That's a completely different video, which I can make as well, because that is the other type of studio that I've personally owned, a studio where not only myself and my business partner at the time, but also outsiders, photographers, creatives, fashion stylists, etc. Everybody could have come and rented that space, but that's a completely different video for a different day. You also need to work out the size as well that you're going to want, because this is important too, because you don't want it too big, you don't want it too small, you just want it to be perfect. And again, this might be a trial and error thing, and this could take months to actually find a space like this that fits perfectly within, you know, these parameters that you need. So once you do that, I think the next step for me personally was then working out the finances. So the studio I found was a 225 square foot, but it was actually a rectangular shape, and it was prior a office space. So it wasn't a purpose-built kind of studio space. It was more like an office space that I could use as a studio. The next part was then working out the costs, and this is where things starts to get a little bit messy, and this is why I say it's important to have a little bit of savings, because that upfront cost when it comes to opening a studio can be significantly higher than what you think it should be. It can be. Sooner or later you start working, you start putting pieces together and buying stuff and getting this and doing this, and then you realize, oh, that initial cost of opening a space can rise rapidly. So hence why this business plan is important as well, because that gives you an idea and a reason to kind of like manage your costs as well, help you manage your costs to the best ability possible, the best way you can possible. So the space I found was 225 square foot. Like I said, it was basically a rectangular box, and the rent for that space was £450, and that's inclusive of my electrics. There was obviously toilet facility, there were gas. So in terms of heating, I could keep the heating on in the building when I'm there. I'll, you know, if it gets too cold, you know, I can make sure I've got heating for myself and my clients. So that was just like the initial rent. But with most places here in the UK, whenever you sign the lease to rent somewhere, there's usually a deposit that's required as well. And again, this is not something that I thought of when I first thing, because I didn't actually have a business plan. So it depends on what your agreement between your landlord and yourself is. But my deposit was basically 1 month's rent up front plus that month's rent. So basically it was £900. Straight off the bat, I'm £900, you know, less now by having to pay that upfront. This is your deposit is actually refundable, so you will get that 450 back once you decide to leave, and you leave the place in a good state and you've not broken anything or caused any damage to the place. So bear that in mind. The other thing you need to take into consideration is parking. With this particular place, parking was available, like I said, but it did come at an extra cost. This wasn't included within the rent. This was on top of what we paid for rent, and that came up to about £100 a month. And this includes 1 parking space for myself and 1 parking space for my client, which isn't ideal. It's sufficient if you do have clients who drive, but if you were to have a team of people coming from different direction, this is not going to be ideal. and it's not often that people are able to car share and, you know, potentially get taxis and stuff because they may have equipment to bring. So take into consideration your makeup artist, your stylist, they may need that extra room. That was roughly about £100 a month. This is a recurring thing as well, so this was a monthly thing. So a lot of the figures I'm going to talk about here are going to be recurring, so including in your monthly rent, which was, from my case, which was £450, there was already £100 coming out from that for the actual car parking space. So the next thing you need to consider and you need to think about is your council tax. Council tax here in the UK is basically like a tax you pay for using or renting certain spaces. This could be zero, but I say could because it depends on certain criteria. I'm not 100% sure what the criteria are, but I'll put a link to it in the description or put some text here just to share with you guys. But I remember you have to find this out yourself. So this is not something the landlord does. You have to sign up this, but you do need the annual figures that you're going to be paying your landlord, the final figures that you're going to pay them for the year. So what, 450 by 12, whatever that amount is, and you need to disclose this to the council, and then they will work out whether you are below that threshold to actually pay council tax. Really important you do that check and make sure you understand that. So that could be anywhere between 45 to 120 if you do have to pay it. It could be even higher, and that again is dependent on the location you're in. You know, there's a few things that make up this, so make sure you do check that out. The next thing, and something I spoke about earlier, that you need to consider, really consider, is an accountant. I cannot tell you how much stress not having an accountant can be, and this is one of the things I did first when I went full-time as a photographer. I make sure I got an accountant because they take care of things to work out certain things when it comes to your finances. So it's important that you get an accountant. I cannot stress this enough. And an accountant, you got to bear this in mind. They could be a monthly fee, or you can pay a flat fee or a yearly fee, and this could be anywhere between £1,200 to £2,500. You know, so this figure varies dependent on your need for them and what you want them and need them to actually do for you and your business. The next thing you need is content insurance of any kind of damages to the building. You are covered, your equipment is covered. Bear in mind, this can include certain things and exclude certain things. So you might think that something is included, but when you check with the insurance company, they might say no, this isn't included, which in turn you might end up having to get personal insurance to cover those other things, which is the other insurance. So you need content and personal insurance. Personal insurance mainly covers you and your equipment, whereas in content insurance cover the equipment that you have within that studio. But bear in mind, there are certain things that may not be included, so make sure you double check that with the insurance company. So both of these could be crazy numbers again, and it depending on what you do. I've got a figure here for content insurance as we speak for a 220 square foot studio, around about 85 to 120 pounds a month. Again, this is going to be another recurring charge. For your personal insurance, this could be anywhere between 25 to 50 pounds. Again, monthly charge. So all our monthly fees are starting to add up. I will make sure I put all the figures here and add them up for you. I'm not going to do them camera because I am reading off my phone and I've not actually added them up properly, but I will add them up on screen so you can actually see what those figures are. Next up, you'll need to have security cameras, and I think this is important for many reasons. If the studio location you're in does not have security cameras outdoors, if you can, at least get a security camera pointed towards your door. again, this is going to come in handy with your content insurance, because this might bring your costs of your insurance lower, because it shows you are trying to be as responsible as possible, trying to cover any eventuality in terms of theft. And you do want to get both indoor and outdoor. Reason you want to get indoor is this covers you for any charges or liability to damages that or claims from clients. Indoor cameras can help protect you in terms of that side of things. So depending on what you get, there are some really good deals on Amazon. I'll make sure I link all of these in the description as well, so make sure you go check that out. So the next thing you will need is painting and decorating. This could be a wild number depending on the space you're actually going. So guys, I want to quickly jump back in and let you know that your painting and decorating budget should also include money to go towards some seating for your clients as well as yourself, and a desk space for you to work from as well. Also consider getting a kettle so that you can make a fresh cup of tea or coffee for your client. A microwave if possible. You got to make sure you got tea and coffee facility for your clients, as well as maybe a mini fridge just in case you want to have water. So if someone doesn't drink coffee, they can have some water. So make sure you factor this in. That's why I say this figure can be anywhere within £300 to £500, but I've put £300 because this is roughly what I paid for the stuff that I had in the studio. So yeah, back to the video. Are you going into a space that is an empty shell that already had painted walls, or are you going to a space where you need to put up dry walls, you need to make a photo cove? All of these things you need to take into consideration, because your bill can skyrocket so easily when it comes to like building a cove, like building a photo cove. Oh my god, it can cost so much money, and then you got a maintenance cost on top of that, which is could be monthly, could be weekly, depending on how busy you are. So that is something you need to take into consideration. I personally didn't feel the need to build a photo cove in this particular space because it was a first time space for me. I traditionally went for using portable setups, so I can break down and set up as and when is needed. This does have its challenges and can be time consuming, but it's the easy route rather than building an actual photo cove. So that way you just use backdrops, and it might be cost effective to do it this way as well, but at the same time, like I said, it can be a bit of a ball ache, so bear that in mind. So those are just some rough figures and ideas in terms of the first stages of opening a studio, right? These numbers can be different. There's things that you can potentially add and remove depending on your needs. So if there is something I've missed, let me know in the comments below. For anyone who's opened a studio before, let us know in the comments below if there's anything you think I've missed out on. But oh, and last but not least, website. You need to make sure you've got a website where you can direct your client to, and you can use that for bookings as well. But you also need a bookings app as well. So for the website, you're looking between £10 and £20 for that. So it's important you've got somewhere so you can actually showcase your work. So you do need a website, and an accounting software is the other thing as well, which I nearly forgot then. So accounting software, you can get this with certain banks here in the UK, which comes free, but with some you do have to pay as well. So that can be around about £30 depending on which one you go with. So this is going to help you when it comes to sending your accounts over to your accountant, which then reports those accounts to the government, and then you know whether you need to pay tax, how much you need to pay, etc. So these are just some of the initial setup things. Now let's go into some of the gear, and I'm gonna assume that you already got the cameras, lenses, and that type of stuff. If you don't, this number can be into the thousands. So I've made a list on Amazon. If you guys will like any information on this list, again, I will put a link to this in the description below. I've got a list of some of the basic things that you will need, right? These are just some of the basics just to get you up and running. And I've got a list there of 28 different items. Bear with me. This one might be a little bit long one, so this video might be a bit longer, but this is just me being as honest as possible with you guys about these things, because you don't actually know that you need and require these things until you actually get into, looking into getting a photography studio. So one of the first things on your list is your lights, and I'm going to put a link to some of the cheaper lights, studio lights that's available. I'm going to try and get as cheaper product as possible, but good quality product, that's important. You want to buy good, but if you can get it for cheap, ideal. And Godox is a really good brand. It's a brand that I use for a lot of my photography equipment, and a brand I've been using since day one. So a lot of this product is going to be either Godox or Newer, who are really good as well, who started making really good quality stuff. So you'll need lights. So how many lights? I've put down 3 lights at a minimum, and there's good reasons for this as well. So you'll need a key light, a hair light, or a background light, or a separation light. So you can probably get away with 2, but I've put 3 of these down, and I recommend the Godox MS300. So these are 300 watt strobes. They're studio strobes, so they're wall plug-in strobes, so they're not portable as your wireless like setup. They're really good and pretty much high power. So I think 300 is a decent starting place. Like, I personally use the Godox 8200 now for a lot of my on location work, and it works fine. I've been using it for almost 6-7 years and never had any issues with it, and that is 200 watts. So 300 watt is plenty enough for what you need. You'll then need a camera trigger to trigger those lights, and this is going to be based off of your camera model, and the pricing for this could vary, so make sure you go check that out. So everything I'm listing here, I'll make sure I put in the description, so make sure you check that out too. Soft boxes. You need to know how many soft boxes you need. I would say you want to start with 3 different types. So the first one is a softbox that's between 95 cm to 120 cm. So a medium to large-ish softbox. If you can get one with a grid, perfect. That will be handy as well, because these are like honeycomb grids. That would be great. I've got one that I've put here, which is the Godox QR P90. It's a 90 cm softbox, so this is going to work nicely as a key light if you're using it. And the other 2 is going to be strip boxes. So strip boxes is what you can use for lighting your subject from behind. You can use them to light your backdrop and stuff. So I would say get a pair of strip boxes. You want to at least 2. Other thing you'll need is a collapsible umbrella, a 7-foot collapsible umbrella. I personally recommend using the white one. You can get them in gray, you can get them in see-through or shoot-through umbrellas, but you can also get them in white. I recommend the white, and they also come with like a sock diffusion material on them as well, which will help you soften the light. But this will be your big soft light source. So, and the fact that they're collapsible is that you can actually put them away, because trust me, when you open this thing inside, it is huge, it is big. A 7-foot umbrella is crazy big. Last, in terms of light modifiers, you will need at least 1 beauty dish, and I would say go with a 55 cm beauty dish, perfect size. So you can either use the softbox as your main light, or you can use the beauty dish. Again, these are some basic product, right? So please do bear that in mind. And one of the most underrated piece of equipment, you probably already have one of this if you're a photographer, because this is one of the first things you buy, and you don't understand how useful it can be when it comes to studio as well, and that is a 5-in-1 reflector. So you've got the ones with that comes sort of like an oval shape. We also have got the round ones. You can also get a 5-in-1 version of what's called a clamshell reflector, so it's kind of like curve, and that will give you like that curve, like fill-in shadow area underneath the chin, jawline, but also you'll see the reflection on the eyes. So you can get either, but I will personally recommend, if you have to, is to get the round version and then get yourself a set of reflector clamps. This is going to help you put it onto light stands and clamp it onto things so you can actually maneuver it and set it to where you want. Next thing you will need is light stands for those lights. So because you've got 3 lights, you'll need 3 stands, and I recommend the newer 9-foot by 2.8 meter stainless steel stands. These coming in right now around about £65 here in the UK. They're really good. I've still got 2 of them from my old studio, my first studio, and still to this day they do an amazing job, so we can't recommend them enough. So you need 3 of these. I do also recommend getting a boom stand, a stand that with a boom arm that you can do like overhead lighting setups with, something that you don't need 3 of, you just need 1. So getting one of these is important, and you will also want to make sure you get sandbags for this as well. Super important to make sure you get sandbags. So you can get a set of 8 sandbags for like £40, and then what you do, you don't go buying sand from Amazon. You go to your local DIY store and you can get a bag of sand for about £1, maybe even £2, and then you get Ziploc bags. You fill them up with the sand, zip them up, and then you put them into the bag. Please do not just put sand straight into the actual sandbags, because trust me, you're gonna regret it straight away. Some little trinkets we call it, small bits that you will need is clamp. You'll need commercial grade clamps. You can get either the metal one or you can get the plastic version. I personally recommend getting a metal one. They'll last a lot longer, and these are metal spring clamps that you can use to clamp stuff. Swiftly moving on to backdrops. The backdrops you use is important, all right? But before we get to the backdrops, you will need a backdrop system. You can go with a portable system, which will give you that flexibility to move around a little bit more, and if you do need to take something on location, you can do. I've gone with a newer version, so this one is a newer 8.5 feet by 10 feet adjustable backdrop, so plenty enough for what you will need. And once you've got that, you will then need your actual backdrops, and they are 4 standard colors that I recommend. The seamless paper backdrops we're talking about here, they come in 2 different sizes. I recommend getting both sizes because you can use the smaller ones when you're just doing 1-person shoots. Use the bigger one when you've got a bigger larger group of clients in the studio. And the 4 colors you're going to need is a brown, a gray, a black, and of course a white. So those are your 4 staple colors that you will probably use a lot more than anything else. But these are going to be a recurring kind of like fee, so you're going to be buying this on a monthly basis depending on how busy you are. Potentially need to buy different colors if a client requests a different color or would like to try out a different color. You may also need to invest and buy different colors. That is our basic starting list. Again, I'll put all these items in the description below. And just for those 28 items as mentioned there, are you ready for the rough numbers those items is going to come up to? For those 28 items, let's go through them. Your security cameras, your portable backdrop system, your backdrops, your smaller size backdrops, your clamps, sandbags, your C-stand with boom arm, your 3 stands for your actual lights, your newer clamshell reflector diffuser thing, then you've got your reflector clamps and your 5-in-1 reflector, which is a must, I feel. Next on your list, your beauty dish umbrella, your collapsible umbrella, your 2 strip boxes, and your medium to large softbox for your main light as your key light. And you'll need your trigger for your camera. If you haven't already got this, make sure you get the one to fit your actual brand. Next on that list, and finally, is your lights, your Godox lights, which brings us to a grand total of £1,828, and that's before we even have a single client. So if you take everything else that we mentioned in the beginning in terms of fees, the upfront cost, you're looking just to get the place up and running and ready for clients. That's just your initial investment that you're gonna need. So yeah, it can get a bit high. So yeah, I'll put a link to all these things I've listed here just for you guys to check out, and if you are considering getting a studio, so you can actually see what it's about. I know this has been a bit of a long video, but I just wanted to be as honest and as transparent as possible. I didn't want it to, you know, fluff it up and make it seem all nice, but also make it seem bad. But I just want to make it as fair as possible based off of my personal experience. If there's something that you guys think I miss, let me know in the comments below. But the most important thing is working out. Are you ready? Are you really ready for this? You're never going to be, but if you're thinking about giving it a go, make sure you cover all your bases. Make sure you cover as much as you can within your scope to give you the best starting place, the best point to go in and attack it. First of all, I want to say thank you for if you've made it to the end of the video. Appreciate it. But if there's anything else you'd like me to go a little bit deeper in with, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, wish you all the best if you are thinking about taking this leap of faith, and good luck. And if you do plan on taking this leap of faith, let me know in the comments below as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.